Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov's chess channel and welcome to the Magnus Carlsen Chess Tour finals in 2020. So now we're in the Armageddon game of the day 5. Incredible performance by both of these players in this finals, and in the day 5 first 4 draws were played. Then Magnus Carlsen managed to win the game with the black pieces in the Alekhine defense, and then Hikaru Nakamura managed to retaliate. He got his point back and get it to the Armageddon game. The psychology in this finals is really incredible because now I think in this Armageddon game, Hikaru Nakamura has really a great advantage because now he managed to win back the game with the black pieces. And as I said, now he plays again with the black pieces in the Armageddon game. And the history has shown that basically it's better to play with the black pieces in the Armageddon because White needs to win the game. Although, of course, White has 1 minute more on the clock, but in the past this Armageddon game I think black has won more games. So let's check out now the Armageddon game. It was really incredible. So here d4 played by Magnus. We have knight to f6 by Hikaru, c4, e6 after knight to c3 we have the Nimzo Indian, and here Magnus plays the move a3. After bishop to c3 we have b takes c3. Now there is of course this double pawn structure which is a long-term weakness, but of course White is continuing the game with the bishop pair. This is the so-called Samish variation, and one of the main ideas of the Samish variation is to build sort of a setup with f3, maybe e4, maybe knight to e2 to really keep a compact center. In the game c5 Black really needs to break the position in the center. D takes c5 doesn't bring you anything because then you have triple pawns, but these are all clear targets. Knight to a6 that we can grab this pawn. After that we'll go something like b6 and go with bishop to a6, attack also this pawn. So Black will have, I think, a comfortable game in this continuation. So that's why after the move c5 e3, so White builds really this most powerful center here with this pawn structure. And as I said, the idea is really a slow build up here with bishop to d3, knight to e2, f3, and then e4. In the game, knight to c6 was played. We have now this move bishop to d3. What Black should basically avoid here is to take. C takes d4 is a huge positional mistake that you can make in these types of setups, because then you improve your opponent's pawn structure now with the bishop pair, with such a healthy pawn structure, with this nice pawn central control that White has here. White has really a comfortable game. So that's why you have to be patient here, also from White's perspective, also from Black's perspective. You should wait a little bit. Here in the game, castling played by Hikaru, and now knight to e2. We have b6, a very important move to develop our light square bishop, because the main weakness in White's position now is the weak c4 pawn. Bishop to a6 with knight to a5 is the main strategical idea here to create really an attack. It is defendable, but sometimes you see that White will simply sacrifice this pawn in order to get some kind of initiative here with e4, f4 to really push this pawns further, really creating an open position for this bishop pair. So in the game e4, we have knight to e8, castling, and now bishop to a6. As I said, they're normal ideas. f4. And let's flip the board here a little bit, because it's really important to realize what Black should do. As I said, we don't want to take. That would be a mistake. We are improving the pawn structure, but we should really break the pawn chain. The pawn chain is, of course, here really these 4 centralized pawns. So the pawn chain is always to be broken in the center. So that's why here Hikaru plays another great move, f5, which is still common theory, but we want to really really block this pawn storm that White has built, because it's really hard to battle. You see these 4 pawns, of course, are restricting all of the minor pieces of Black's. Here in the game, e takes f5, played by Magnus, which is a good choice, because then you could play the move d5. But after the move d5, Black will go simply with this normal idea, knight to a5, and attacking further the c4 weakness, and then could block the position with the potential d6 move. So in the game, e takes f5. Here we have d takes c5, which is playable, but it's really not the best of choices. I think you should really keep the position dynamic somehow here. After the move f5, really try to maybe develop the dark square bishop with bishop to e3, continue to stay with our space advantage here. In the game here, as I said, Magnus took these pawns. We have now really an open center position, which is good for the bishops. As for the move bishop to e3, we have now d6. And when we watch now the pawn structure, of course, it's really a weird one. Black has the weakness of this backward pawn. White has weaknesses here. This isolated pawn, also this double pawn here on the c4. So it's really a complex game. You can make really many mistakes. In the game, knight to g3 played by Magnus, and we have now g6. Fixing the pawn. At least Magnus has now accomplished that he provoked basically some dark square problems with the move knight to g6, because Black doesn't have any more the dark square bishop. Now we can use this bishop in order to make something happen. Here rook to e1 played by Magnus, and now knight to f6, simply improving the position of the knight, of course, and now bishop to f2. Here Magnus is trying to get his bishop on a very active diagonal. The bishop is of course useless here on e3, so it's a nice bishop maneuver. Bishop to f2, bishop to h4 is of course sort of a nice positional idea by Magnus. We have queen to d7, and now knight to f1. We have knight to a5, of course attacking the weakness, as I said, and now bishop to h4. So as I said, you see many times that white will not even try to protect his pawn because it's useless. Sometimes it gives black some great opportunities to simply improve the position of his minor pieces. So now Magnus gave away simply his pawn, but here Hikaru plays, I think, a correct move. He doesn't want to take immediately the pawn on c4. The c4 is a long-term weakness. If white wants to protect it, he can do it, but it's more important to get the pieces into the game. So this is now the so-called principle of this last active piece. So it means we should really include all of our pieces into the game, because we haven't played with our rook on a8. So all of these pieces are very active of black. So that's why here it was a good idea by Hikaru to include his rook into the game. Rook to e8, queen to e8, and now bishop to f6. This is now, I think, the critical moment of the game. Here Magnus makes really a huge mistake, huge positional mistake, because I think the main advantage that we have is the dark square bishop, because the dark square bishops, dark square problems that black has here are always something that you have to protect. So that's why giving up in such a position, the dark square bishop, and still continuing the game with the c4 weakness, and still, okay, I would understand this move if you would have some kind of a counter attack, but I'm not seeing what Magnus has calculated here. What did he see? What kind of a strategical idea, what kind of a tactical idea did he have here? I'm not sure what he saw, because now basically this bishop is bad. It's blocked out by its own pawn. It's only a defensive piece which protects, of course, the pawn on c4. The pawn structure is not allowing here also this bishop to breathe. As I said, I think after this trade of the bishop for the knight, Hikaru has really comfortable game. I'm not sure what happened to Magnus. Huge blunder here. Queen to f3, and now rook to e6, of course, doubling up, creating a queen and rook battery, very important move. And now rook to b1. Okay, you have now also the b file, but nothing is going on, I believe, on the b file. The more important file is, of course, the e file here, and bishop to c4. Hikaru grabs a pawn, and he has the black pieces. He can go now into draw and win the match game, because he's a pawn up. Has still this very powerful two centralized pawns. We have a4, and now king to g7. Queen to b7, also not the best of moves. Again, Hikaru wants to trade off more pieces. If the position gets more and more simplified, then it's of course at least a draw for black, and Hikaru is happy with that result. So queen to a6. Rook to e7, rook to b8, and now king to h6. We have h3, and now queen to e6. Very nice move here. Now Hikaru prepared really a dangerous tactic. After rook to a8, now knight to d2. Great tactic here by Hikaru, because if you take knight takes d2, then you get queen to e3. You have to move the king somewhere, and now you get simply here queen to e1. If you cover with the knight, then you get rook to e2, and everything is blocked out, and here I think black has a winning game. So you see how if you try king to g1, then you get simply queen to f2 and queen to g2. So great move here by Hikaru in this fast time format. Knight to d2, rook to d8 was played, and now Hikaru simply takes queen to f1, and again queen to e3, again rook to e4, simply improving the position of the pieces. Rook takes d6, but not a problem. Here Hikaru really simplifies the position and has now a comfortable endgame. He is the pawn up, and of course it's at least, as I said, at least a draw. You cannot lose this game, at least in this top grandmaster level. So a5, rook to c4. Here Hikaru grabs another pawn, and push simply this pawn further. Rook j2. We have rook takes g2, and now Magnus hoped here that he can make something with his pass pawn, but Hikaru has, of course, time to get his rook back into the game. Here, Hikaru has, of course, 3 connected pass pawns: f4, rook j4, rook takes a4, and this was now a very, very nice endgame, because after queen to f1, we have queen to d5, queen to f5, and now Magnus makes the huge blunder, but it's a losing game anyway for white, because we have queen to f4, and in this position Magnus Carlsen resigned because the queens have to be traded now, and we have a pass pawn. It's game over. So incredible game. Hikaru wins the day 5. He's now in the lead. He needs one more win, one more match day, and he'll crush the world champion. Okay, I'm a little bit surprised, but I'm not unhappy. I really like this situation where Magnus has to really play his best chess. It's really tensed the match game so far. I really enjoyed it, and you see how even in this Armageddon game, Hikaru finds really this tactical shot. That's why we love Hikaru. We love his attacking brilliances, although sometimes he plays some risky moves, but this is really attractive to watch, and now he deserves here to be in the lead. As I said, he needs one more win, and he can maybe crush the world champion. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. If you want to see more of this tournament, here is the link, and if you want to see my best chess games of all time series, here's also the link where you can see some other great games from the history. And if you like this content, you can also subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best of